Good evening, everybody, and welcome to week 6 in CA 121, Culinary Skills and Techniques. Chef Suzanne and I welcome you to another fine live session. Ladies and gents, following this class or following this week, we will have officially reached the midpoint here in CA 121, and Chef Suzanne and I are awfully proud of the students that are doing well in this class. And that is to all the students that are putting in the effort and coming to the live sessions, et cetera, et cetera. Great job. We appreciate that. It's very rewarding to see some of the work that's coming across. So Chef Suzanne and I just want to say thank you very much. And as a reminder, there are a couple of students that aren't doing so well. And, you know, Chef Suzanne and I are here to encourage and help you and work with you to help you develop the skills that it takes to become a chef. So take advantage of it, and that's what we're here for. So it's just a phone call. We're nice people. We love to chat, and we can certainly lead you down the right path. Hi, Deidre. How are you? Good evening. Week 5, everybody. Want to get a little bit of feedback on week 5 to see what everybody thought about the exercise. What about poaching? How did everybody's court bouillon come out? Does anybody want to share that? Leslie? Deidre? Anybody? Crystal?
Anybody? I can share, Chef.
You share. Go ahead.
I will share. I actually did have a handful of students that did indeed do court bouillon. Typically, this week is more empapillote. This group was actually more poaching, which is not what I'm used to seeing. I was just expecting more empapillote. So there's quite a bit of the court bouillon. They looked really nice. Saw some beautiful, lots of poached salmon. I think that was what I saw more than anything. So I think there was some good deals on salmon across the U.S. this week, so that was fun to see. Also saw some really nice beurre blanc. I think the biggest issue I saw was folks that may have had a hard time getting a hold of butter, and this is not one of those recipes where you can substitute margarine, unfortunately, in a beurre blanc. So some issues with the consistency because it was margarine or something that was like a butter blend versus all butter. So I did see some issues with that this week. So I think that was probably the biggest issue.
I'm really glad you're bringing up that point. I think that's really important to mention that, because butter is 80% fat and then 20% liquid, which is can be milk solids, whey, and other proteins. Whereas margarine is a chemically fortified substance that we're not quite sure what it is, and the scientists are still working on it, trying to figure it out about exactly what it is, and they are not interchangeable substances. Margarine is not healthy for you. It's not a natural product, and I'm not sure that your body knows how to deal with it once you ingest it, neither are the scientists. So they're still working through these issues. So make sure in the future that you don't interchange butter and margarine, especially when you get into industry. You're not going to see a lot of margarine floating around in there because that can be something that is very hazardous in a kitchen. So we don't mess with margarine. That's a great point, Chef Suzanne. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. What other? How'd you? Speaking of the beurre blanc, Chef Suzanne, how'd you like everybody's beurre blancs?
I thought they looked really nice. There was a couple that didn't strain them, and I know that's not something, typically it's strained, but there are some that chose to leave the shallots in it, but the consistency looked very nice.
Oh, nice.
Coating the back of that spoon, that nice nappe consistency. So I actually was really impressed. I think I actually had somebody that added some tomato paste and chili powder to their so I thought that was kind of a nice variation for their dish. So creativity too.
Nice. I'm so excited to see that. Crystal, what did you think about week 5?
It was okay. I had a problem with that sauce. I couldn't make it thick. It was too watery. I don't know what I was doing wrong.
That would primarily be due, number one, your liquid probably didn't reduce enough. And then number two, if it remained liquidy, there would have been too much variation in your temperature. If you get too big of a distance between your liquid and your butter, meaning the butter's really cold and the liquid's really hot, or vice versa, it's not going to create that emulsion, which is a temporary suspension of two non-binding ingredients. And if it remains liquidy, that means that they didn't emulsify and they're remaining two separate substances.
Okay. Yeah, the flavor was there. I like the taste, but it was just too watery. I couldn't make it thick enough.
Yeah, and that's, you know what, that's okay. Sometimes it takes a couple of shots to get it right. And then, you know, in industry, a lot of times we do that, what's called a la minute, to order. We'll prepare that sauce. And then for banquets, we'll prepare it kind of in bulk. You know, we'll hit it with a little bit of cornstarch to help stabilize it so it doesn't break under the heat. But certainly keep practicing that sauce. It's a good sauce to master before you get going.
Okay.
What did you cook this week, Crystal?
I did that fish in that paper. I don't know what fish it was. Looking for salmon. They were out, so I just grabbed the fish that was there available.
Okay.
I don't remember the name, but it came out good. I really liked it. Moist, like it was different for me. First time cooking fish.
Okay. Well, good for you. Good for doing it. Good for stepping out there and taking the chance. And, you know, sometimes, you know, that's how we grow in this industry, is when we try new things. And it may not come out perfect each time, but the more we keep doing it, the better you're going to get and you're going to succeed. So good job. And you did the parchment paper, is that correct?
Yes.
How was folding it?
I think I got it like used to like the right way on the third try. I was doing it with my right, but I turned it over to my left and it was a lot easier. Like I don't know why I didn't think of that. Columns at first.
Good job. I'll be honest with you, Crystal. I've probably made at least 1,000 in Papillote dishes, and I probably messed up the first 400 of them. So don't be discouraged. Yeah, and Chef Suzanne probably, you know, the first couple ones that she tried were a little.
Oh yeah, where you can, the steam's coming out the side and they just look awful, or they're leaking out the bottom. Yeah. Struggle with the first few. Same with beurre blanc. The first couple times I made it was not a good thing. But once you get it, you get it, and it's such a good sauce to, like I said, it's a good one to be able to master. Absolutely.
And I'm glad you talked about the versatility of it. And a lot of these things that you're learning here at Escoffier, especially in this program, we're teaching you a lot of techniques and showing you the techniques. But what's going to make you as a chef is your individual attention and additives to these dishes. You know, you're going to serve beurre blanc throughout your career, and they're not going to be all made the way that you're learning, but it's going to be the same technique. And you're going to add your own sense of creativity to these dishes. And like Chef Suzanne was talking about just a moment ago, you know, some people added chili powder and some other different things to these beurre blancs. Once you get into industry, you know, chili mulatto, lime juice, you know, we've done them with tequila, you know, we've done it with whole grain mustards, we've done it with apricots, and the list goes on and on. So that's really what's going to separate you from the rest once you get down the road a little bit. Any other comments regarding week 5? Deidre, Leslie, do you guys have anything to share about week 5? No? Okay.
I did forget to mention that presentations were very nice this week.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that. Very, very nice. Standing out, like every week they're getting better and better. So very nice.
Oh, that is wonderful. Presentation, once you get into industry, is going to be a really key element to your success. And, you know, once we get to this level, you know, of culinary arts, you are expected to be able to develop a decent presentation. And just always remember those 3 factors that are so important. And that's color, height, and texture. So many people have a tendency to kill it. Parsley all over the rim, peppers everywhere. Stuff shooting all over the place, and you can't see the food, nor can you taste the food. So just remember that. You want it to have a natural appearance. All of your garnishes in your presentation are meant to enhance what you are trying to serve. So that is very, very important. So good job to those of you that are putting the extra effort into it and making progress. That is completely awesome. As we move on here this evening, it's really important to note, I need to talk just a little bit. There's a couple of students in this class that are not performing well for a multitude of reasons, not sure what they are. However, please remember, Chef Suzanne and I are here to help you succeed. And it is also very important to note that this CA 121 is the last CA 121 that is being offered, right? So should you not make it through the class with a passing grade, you will not be able to take this class again. You will be forced to re-enroll and start back from the beginning again. So take advantage of it. You're at week 6. There's plenty of time to succeed. We are here to help you. We're here to work with you. So all you have to do is just reach out, pick up the phone and say, hey, Chef, you know, this is what's going on. I need help. I'm ready to move forward. We're gonna do it. Everybody out there needs to remember that you can do it. It is possible, right? And it's all about attitude and aptitude. So attitude meaning that if you're positive, aptitude meaning that if you're willing to listen and understand what's being instructed, and then boom, you're just going to move forward and you're going to fly high. You are building tomorrow, and we are here to help you do that. So if anybody needs any help, certainly let us know. Everybody out there needs to remember one key factor. Chefs prepare food, and we are ready to serve the guest when the guest is ready to be served. A guest does not wait for the chef to prepare the food and eat when the chef is ready to serve the food. So make sure you maintain that equation in proper perspective. Chef Suzanne and I have mentioned to all of you over the past couple of weeks that, hey, it's a great opportunity to work ahead of the curve, right? Break it down into small portions, your assignments. Submit early, submit on Saturday. This way Chef Suzanne has plenty of time to give you great feedback and stay ahead of the game. Proaction before reaction is where it's at. You have anything to add to that, Chef Suzanne?
Just that time management can be hard sometimes, you know, when, you know, with family and jobs and obligations. So scheduling is important. Plan out your week in as early as possible, kind of like Chef was just saying, break it into pieces so that you'll work on this particular item and then you'll work on this particular item. And so you will try and, you know, break down your tasks into segments. So like this week, you may have gotten all of your veggies chopped, you know, 2 days before you actually did your dish. And so you would have your mise en place done, and then you would get into making the actual dish. And so being able to do that is going to help you succeed in your courses, and it's kind of going to set you up for when you're in the industry, you're going to be doing the same thing. So if you're cooking for an event for 500 people, you're not going to do all of that cooking in one day. You're going to have to plan up several days. That 2 days before, you're going to cut up the fish, and then you're going to do the mise en place and cut up the veggies. And then you're going to, you know, get all your papillote wrap the day before. So you're not going to do all of those things in that one day. So it is literally exactly what you'll be doing in the industry, just on a smaller scale at home. So
absolutely. Great words of advice. Those are fantastic. When you get into industry, you're going to walk into work each day and you're going to get hit with a list that seems to be eternal. And the only way you can get through that list is putting one foot in front of the other, right? Organization, prioritize yourself and do not procrastinate. That is a major problem. So, off the soapbox and on to next week. Just remember, everybody, you can do this. This is your dream. We are here to help you succeed, and the opportunity is there. You just need to put the effort into it and do the work at the end of the day. So, hey, ladies and gents, mid-course survey is up on our class page. Make sure everybody takes the time to do that. Chef Suzanne and I and Escoffier really appreciate all of the feedback that you can provide for us. We are constantly using that information to make this program better. So we would appreciate it if everybody could take the time to do it. The same thing in industry, when you're a young chef and you're right out of culinary school, anytime you hear something negative about all of your hard work and effort, it can be a little bit hurting. However, over the years, you learn to listen to that feedback and improve yourself based on that information. So that's what we do here at Escoffier. And so we would appreciate all of your feedback. We don't need to be, you know, I don't know, but it's constructive criticism to help the program grow. I would like to learn this. Oh, I think they spent too much time on this. Maybe they could work on this a little bit, et cetera, et cetera. That type of feedback really helps us out. Any other comments before we move on? None?
I'm excited. I am so excited. We are in week 6. I cannot believe it already. It doesn't even seem like it.
It's flowing by, hasn't it?
Yes, very much so.
I think everybody in the class really needs to know and understand that for Chef Suzanne and I, our payday is when we see you guys grow, right? When you see a student that can make something, prepare something, and present it incredibly, and you think to yourself, wow, that is so awesome. That is the real payday for a chef, watching somebody else succeed. And that's what we really thrive upon. And it's been a joy so far. I can't wait till week 12. That's going to be exciting. Let's take a look at our week 5 class page here for this week. Make sure that you take your mid-course survey that is located up here at the top of the class page. We are going to throw in some extra credit for that, for taking that survey, and I'm not sure exactly what percentage that's going to be, but there will be extra credit for taking the mid-course survey as well as the end-of-course survey. We thank you very much, everybody, for being here at our live session, all 3 of you. And we really hope that everybody out there takes the time to watch the live session archive. And then we do have 1 knowledge check this week. Last week we had 2. This one we had 1. I have to congratulate everybody. There were many more people that did the knowledge check last week, and a lot of you did very, very well on it. So that's awesome. Good job. And then the sauteed protein with a choice of starch and veg is our assignment this week. But we are going to throw a little wrench into the works, Chef Suzanne and I here in just a few moments once we get to that part. I want to touch on the discussion forum real quick before we move on. Last week's discussion forum, for those of you that submitted to it, I was really impressed. There was some really good information in there. The stuff you guys were sharing about pricing and everything else. This is a fantastic time for all of you to network with one another and create those relationships. Culinary arts is all about relationships, and Chef Suzanne is over there going, yes, it is. In Chef Suzanne, you still talk to people from years and years ago, don't you?
Yes, I feel really old when you say it like that, but yes, I do. I still am friends and network with people that I went to culinary school, what seemed like a really long time ago. But absolutely, you still have those connections and you utilize them from time to time. So absolutely, it is a people industry. It's not just about the food, it is a people industry. And so those connections are huge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You'll find yourself, you'll eventually get to the point in this industry where you don't apply for jobs, right? It's people that call and say, hey, can you come help me out? I had a really interesting story. I had a young fellow that was a dishwasher for me back in 1998 at a resort, and he really wanted to move up, and he was really eager. So we gave him the opportunity. He joined the ACF, American Culinary Federation. He went to culinary school, worked his way up. He became my sous chef, and then eventually became my chef. Well, we parted ways. I left. I opened up a restaurant. He became an executive chef at a resort up the street, or up in northern Arizona. And it was about 4 or 5 years later. I had just come back from Trinidad and Tobago, and I wasn't doing much. And he called me up and he said, you know, I'm the executive chef for DoubleTree Hotels, and is there any way you'd come help me out for a while? So I ended up becoming his executive sous chef for a period of time, and that was a wonderful opportunity to see how this young man had grown into such a fine chef, and then to become a part of his team. It was very humbling and a very gratifying experience. So those are some of the things that happened.
It's true. I wholeheartedly agree with that. My husband is also a chef, kind of like your wife is also a chef. Uh-huh. My husband has not had to look for a job in the last 4 or 5 jobs he's had. Someone recruits and comes to find him.
Uh-huh.
just word of mouth, and he'll get a call. And yes, that is absolutely our industry in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Those connections.
And these discussion forums are such a great way to get those relationships started, and hang on to them and nourish them, and certainly work with them throughout the years, because they will pay dividends. You've got a great friend. And once you get into some of these other classes here, like 155, we were talking about this the other day, when you come up with these ideas in your head about your restaurant facilities or your menus and everything else, it's so great to be able to pick up the phone and call another chef and say, hey, what do you think about this? Right? Hey, how would you do this? And I have found so many solutions to concerns over the past couple of years by just doing that. And it's a great tool. So on to our week 6 lesson. I don't know if anybody noticed under research materials this week, it's asking you to refer back to the prior 5 weeks. And that is what we are doing this evening. If everybody remembers week 1 here in CA 121, we started out by working with sauteed vegetables. We learned about some different saute techniques that we're going to review here in just a moment. And we kind of brushed up on some of those skills, some of the stuff you learned in 102 or 101. And then in week 2, we moved on to sauteed protein. And then we also did a starch in a veg for that assignment as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a moment. And then week 3, if you remember, I love week 3 because we got to do the fritters. I still remember Crystal talking about the fritters and how she enjoyed them. And then we also talked about deep fried battered vegetables and some of the safety concerns around that. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. Week 4, we dove into pan fried cutlets with veg, starch, and a sauce. And I thought that was a fantastic exercise as well. I know Chef Suzanne, she got pretty excited about that one with the chicken and the gravy. Yeah, I want it. Yeah, I wanted it too.
I love chicken. I love chicken. I love these pictures. These are, this is such a great class.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, Chef Suzanne, because I was thinking about you earlier this morning. I was working with a group of firefighters, these kids, and they're trying to learn how to cook so they can cook at the firehouse. And they were all talking about cooking chicken and how they do their chicken and which way they do their chicken and that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Let's take a look at a couple of reminders that we've learned so far here in CA 121. Our first thing that we talked about back in week 1 was gallon person, right? Because we have to be very neutral here. Gallon person. We have a conversions knowledge check coming up this week. So this information will be posted into your class page following the class, but a lot of the stuff will be applicable. And I know this thing kind of seems juvenile in nature. However, most of us learn through memory or through visual memory. And for some reason, gallon person really helps us memorize. So there's a couple of different things here that will help you out. As far as the tablespoon, teaspoon thing is concerned, which I think you're going to get asked about that on your conversion knowledge check this week. There's 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon, 16 tablespoons in a cup, and then boom, you're set. After that, obviously, you know there's 8 ounces in a cup, and if there's 16 tablespoons, that means each tablespoon will be half an ounce. So once you get a little bit further into this program, you're really going to understand the necessity behind understanding all of these conversions. It's something, once you are in industry, you're writing recipes or you're instructing individuals, you're scaling recipes, which means you have to make them larger and smaller. When you're costing recipes and you need to figure out the costing on these items, all of this stuff is going to come into play. So really work hard on this part. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne?
Absolutely. And it may be a struggle now, but the more you do it and the more you see it, the better you'll get. I always say, if you know who lives in a pineapple under the sea and you can remember that, you can learn how many ounces are in a gallon. It's just a matter of remembering and seeing it and hearing it over and over again.
Right. That number 128 will stick in your head. so clearly. And I dream about that kind of stuff at night after so many years, and it's a little warped, I know, but it is, it's true. Moving on to week 1, and some of the stuff that we're hoping that you're going to use for your week 6 assignment is sauteing. We talked quite a bit in week 1 about sauteing, about how important it is to use a heavy bottom pan. A good quality saute pan with a nice thick bottom on it. That nice thick bottom helps insulate and maintain the heat. So when we add our ingredients to the saute pan, the temperature doesn't lower and force our meats to sweat. We want a heavy saute pan that's going to be able to recover quickly from adding a cold item into that pan. So that's one thing that we talked about. We talked quite a bit about different oils to use when we saute, right? We want to avoid using extra virgin olive oil, especially cold press. That's pretty bad olive oil to be sauteing in. It's got a very low smoke point. The smoke point is when at the point at which that oil begins to smoke, and it also becomes very bitter. So we want to avoid doing that. And then we recommend working with peanut oil, grapeseed oil, canola oil. Some of these other oils are absolutely fantastic to work with when it comes to saute. And what was the no stick thing? Does anybody remember that? Anybody? Anybody? I'm so lonely sometimes. Hot pan, cold oil equals no stick. Hot pan, cold oil equals no stick. Remember that. There are pores in the bottom of a saute pan. When you get that pan hot and you add that cold oil into it, that cold oil will seep down into the pores and help create a nice smooth non-stick surface for your saute pan, and really save you a lot of hassle down the road. And then we also remember how we flip in a saute pan, right? Does everybody remember that? Let's take a quick gander at that information to make sure that we're all on the same page for this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide all of our ingredients down to the bottom edge of the pan, right? We don't move our arm a lot when we do this. It's mostly wrist action that is happening. I've seen a lot of people that gussy up to the saute station and they start working that arm back and forth, and you know, by the end of the night they're just exhausted. So we try to avoid doing that. It's primarily a wrist action. And then once you get all the food down into the bottom of the saute pan, you're going to lift it up and back, right? Flip food upwards and back. Slight angle towards the middle of your chest. I always tell people to aim for their sternum, right? You're going to come up and then just a little bit towards your sternum when you're tossing in the saute pan. And then as the food comes back down, that's when you become a catcher. Right? Just like the catcher. A catcher, when they are catching a baseball, I'm not sure if anybody plays baseball or not, but they don't keep a firm hand, right? Meaning, like, if the ball hits like that, it's going to create that inertia, and it's going to hurt their hand, and it's going to hurt the ball. However, if you play with a little bit of give, right, where you catch the ball and allow it to come back a little bit, you're going to preserve the quality of your food. So as those eggs come down in your saute pan, catch them softly as though they were landing on a pillow and allow them some give. It will save you a lot of hassle down the road. How many egg yolks have you broken, Chef Suzanne?
More than I'd like to count, but not in a long time.
Because of the catching technique.
Yep. Gentle. Got to be gentle. Not going for distance. Not going for height. Just going for a nice toss, mixture, nice safe catch.
Right. Save the ceiling. Yeah. Save a ceiling. So we've got our nice safe catch, just like you had a baseball glove, and that ball comes in and you allow a little bit of give for it to come on down. And this is the actual motion that we're going to be looking for, or you're going to be looking for as you're doing it. This is not something to get discouraged over. I've seen a lot of new students over the years, and they pick up a saute pan for the first time, and they begin to toss ingredients, and those ingredients go everywhere. That happened to me, and it's probably going to happen to you, but just be patient. This is a technique that once you learn it, it will become like riding a bicycle. So it's going to happen. Here's a great video that we're going to take a look at. This is made by Stella It is a guy that I have a lot of admiration for because he talks about a lot of great stuff in this video when it comes to sauteing. And a couple of things that I wanted to point out along the way here.
When sauteing anything, you want to make sure you heat an appropriate size saute pan over a high flame and charge it real well with heat. Now, when I say appropriate size, I mean a pan that's going to allow you to saute your ingredients without overfilling it.
The big concern about overfilling a saute pan is you're going to lower the heat too significantly, and you're not going to be sauteing. If we remember what sauteing means, it literally means to jump from the pan, is the literal translation. So you want to have, if you're going to be sauteing 4 chicken breasts, have a pan that can easily accommodate the 4 chicken breasts. Don't shove them all in there. It'll keep the pan a lot more consistent in heat.
Check the heat. You can also do the water test by dropping a little bit of water, and it should beat up, bounce around a little bit, and then sizzle off quickly. This is going to allow you to know that you have a really hot pan. Now, it's important to have your pan nice and hot before you add your cooking oil, because the pan will have natural pores that will close once it becomes hot and allow the cooking oil to float on top. Now, you always want to use a high smoke point cooking oil, such as canola oil, grapeseed oil, or just pure clarified butter. My preference being a 50-50 mix of clarified.
I don't know if you can notice in the video here, up in this corner, you see some slight smoke coming up off of that oil. And that is one of the indicators that we look for when we we don't obviously do the water test when we're in industry because we're going too fast and we don't have time to sit there and dribble water into the saute pan for each order. But number one, we put the pan on. Once that pan starts to stick to the grates, we know that it's starting to get hot enough. When we add the oil to it, the viscosity, the thickness of the oil should immediately thin out and spread throughout that pan very quickly. And there should be just a light amount of smoke coming from that oil. And that tells you that that saute pan is ready to go to work. Sorry, John. Okay.
Canola. You don't ever want to saute with a low smoke point oil like extra virgin olive oil, especially cold pressed. Now, when you add the contents to your pan, make sure you don't overcrowd it. You want to add it in one thin layer. And notice how I'm sauteing with my left hand.
Just a little hint for anybody that's trying to caramelize onions or saute onions. It's always a good idea to add a little bit of salt, kosher salt, to those onions. And what that does is it breaks down the cellulose fibers and allows the juices to excrete and caramelize much quicker than they do without adding the salt.
Can't even when I'm right-handed. This is because you often have your cooking utensil in your right hand. That way you can saute and move the pan and then move quickly to the plate without switching hands and missing a step. This is extremely important, especially if you're cooking hot load. Now, the actual movement is to push the pan down, forward, and pull back, making
and yes, you will be sauteing with both hands when you're in industry.
A round movement, and this pushing forward and pulling back while tipping the pan upwards on the back pull is going to flip those onions or whatever your contents is up along that rim and push it back towards into the pan. Now, with a lot of practice, you can make this movement nice and smooth. And you'll notice also I'm shaking the pan to make sure things are moving rapidly and not sticking. Now, the actual word saute in French means to jump, which is the movement.
So that's kind of a little glimpse of kind of an industry type thing there that we deal with on a regular basis.
Techniques just
as far as sauteing with both hands, make sure you master one first before you start with the second one. Very, very important. So in just to go ahead and review what we just talked about, make sure that pan is hot, make sure that your oil is cool, and then make sure you have an appropriate size saute pan. You want to make sure you get that nice sear on the outside of your protein. A sear technically does not keep the juices in the meat. What it does is it caramelizes the exterior of the meat and creates a much more layered flavor effect. So that's the big reason that we like to sear. Does anybody have any questions about searing? Sauteing? Chef Suzanne?
I actually just wanted to add that I like to toss things in pans. Once I learned, I wanted to show it off to anybody and everybody I knew. I was showing off to family and friends. It's such a cool thing because most, non-culinary folks do not know how to do that. So it's a great thing to show off. I think I'm also one of the rare few that chefs that enjoys working an omelet station out in front of house. I love to show off, working all those pans, tossing all those veggies, pasta stations. Love that. Love that. Love to show off.
Oh, that's a blast, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You kind of strut your stuff, so to speak. That's really cool. I like that. Chef Suzanne's gonna smile when I say this next one. But in industry, when you start working on a saute station, especially, you become very, very protective over your mise en place. We have tongs, knives, and especially kitchen towels that we keep near and dear to us. And should somebody touch that while you are working on your saute station on a busy Friday night, that there are very severe penalties for doing that up until execution for doing that. Isn't that right? If somebody walks by and grabs your towel or something like that.
Oh yeah, and working saute, everything has to be just so. There's not, you mess with somebody's whole system. You messed up their mojo.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you get into a flow, you get into a zone, and if somebody bumps, moves, you never touch another person's saute pan. Mise en place is probably the most important thing that we deal with on a saute station. And the first thing I do every night when I work saute station is I fold an entire stack of napkins, right, or towels, kitchen towels, and I have them stashed on my station, because never saute without a towel in your hand. We do not use oven mitts in the kitchen. We don't use any of that kind of goofy stuff. We just use kitchen towels. Tongs, make sure you have them near and dear to you at all times. Nothing worse than having a concern in your saute pan with something sticky and then you have to go on a search for something. It's not good. Set up, set up, set up all the way. Let's take a look. We're going to move on quickly to week 3 and take a look at what we did during that week. If you all remember, we worked on the fritters and we also worked on the deep fried vegetables that week. And I love deep fried anything. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne? You like, yeah, she's back.
Yes, deep frying is amazing.
Yeah, definitely one of God's gifts to this earth, absolutely. We talked about the fritters and some of the important things. Something I didn't cover so much when we talked about this. Once you get into industry, you're not going to really have the option of adjusting temperatures a lot in your deep fryer. One of the concerns about that is our deep fryers are generally about 35 pounds of oil, which is a pretty substantial amount. And to take something from 350 to 365 or from 365 to 350 can be a very long time. So we have to become conscientious of that. So if you're working on a recipe, the chef says, hey, I need these fritters right away, and it says you need it at 365, it's probably not going to happen. So you're going to have to make a decision. Am I going to portion this out into smaller portions? Am I going to cook it for a less period of time? How am I going to do this? Finish it in the oven? So you need to think those steps through before you actually start putting the stuff into the oil. Talked about the basic ingredients. This is something, an element that you can do on your week 6 assignment. You cannot do this entirely for your week 6 assignment. Is that right, Chef Suzanne? It can be an element to your plate. An element being defined as one of the things on the plate, right? Not a plate full of fritters, right? We would like to see.
I would agree. I think that sounds very valid, Chef.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. Should you choose to do a fritter this week, maybe as your vegetable, we would expect to have a little bit of creativity put into the fritter. Instead of just a plain zucchini fritter, perhaps you could take that zucchini, grill it first, put some cracked black peppercorns in there, maybe put some Gruyere cheese in there, maybe kick it up a notch or two and make it look a little bit something special at your skill level where you guys are at now. We want to start seeing a little bit more in that department, especially in this class. So plan on doing that. So fritters, we understand the basic ingredients. For those of you that are in the no gluten category, you know, you can certainly substitute the chickpea flour or a different type of flour, should that be, because you really don't need the glutens so much in this recipe. Batter vegetables we talked about in week 3 as well. Should you choose to do that this week as an element on your plate, not the entire plate, but as a side dish, certainly take a look at not just doing one type of vegetable. It's perfectly acceptable to maybe have a couple of bâtonnet carrots, maybe some haricots courts, which are French green beans, maybe a piece of eggplant. Make sure you peel it first. You know, put some creativity into that, something a little bit different. Do you have any suggestions in that department, Chef Suzanne?
I think a good suggestion is to do something different than you've done before. Try something new. If you did broccoli last time, maybe try bell peppers, try carrots, sweet potatoes, just something different.
Asparagus, yeah, something. I think that's a great idea. Definitely try something a little bit different this week. Stretch your boundaries. It's very uncomfortable. People don't like it, but when you do stretch your boundaries, you feel a little bit better and you've learned a little bit more and you're a little bit better. So take advantage of it. So we remember how to make the basic recipe for the batter that you're going to use. Flour, cornstarch, some leavening agent. Traditionally, it can be egg or it can be baking soda. Some type of carbonated beverage, whether it be beer or whether it be club soda, is traditionally used. Make sure you take a look at a couple of different recipes to see which one works best for you. The frying technique, a couple of things that we want to make sure that we see is the GBD, right? The golden brown delicious, right? That nice crunchy exterior that's nice and golden brown. It should be even, which tells us that, hey, when the stuff's in the oil, they're working it, they're turning it, they're making sure it's cooked properly all over. And then make sure that when it comes out of the oil that it goes onto a rack, not onto a paper towel. That's bad. That's bad. We don't like that. We want to make sure it goes on a paper towel or onto a rack, I'm sorry, because that rack allows all that steam to escape. And as that steam is escaping, it excretes all of the oils. So it has a nice crunchy texture. We don't want greasy food. No, that's not what eating fried food is about. It's about that GBD, right? A couple of things to remember when you go to deep fry, saute, or pan fry for your week 6 assignment. Safety is always a big concern in the world of culinary arts. I'm sure Chef Suzanne has been, and I have been on multiple occasions where our local friends from the fire department have come by in a rather quick sense of urgency to assist us in a time of need. And that is not a pleasant experience, and we certainly don't want that to happen to anybody's house. So you have to be conscientious of the fact that deep frying can be dangerous if not dealt with properly. We don't turn our heat on, walk away, sit down, and then play, what's a video game? Pokemon. No, is that a video game? No.
Pokemon. I guess when a Pokemon grows up, they're a Pokemon. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Mario, right? Yeah.
I think you just aged us both, Chef.
Yeah. In other words, Chef Suzanne and I are totally cool. We don't want you to sit down at the Atari and start playing Asteroids. Right? So you got to be really conscientious about your deep fryer. You know, should that oil get to flash point where it engulfs in flames, make sure you cover it, you kill the source of heat, get the baking soda out to extinguish any type of flame, and make sure that you keep small children away. Make sure that you are wearing shoes in the kitchen as we have prescribed on many different occasions, and make sure that you have all of your mise en place set and ready to go before you begin the exercise. Dedicate yourself, focus, and stay with it. Are there any questions about that? No? As well, make sure that you have an appropriate thermometer when you go to deep fry. You know, a lot of us come from the old school of just testing it. We'll put a drop of water in there and see if that's what works. It does not work that way in industry. We deep fry in very specific temperatures, and we do it exactly So all of our recipes come out exactly the same each time. Get a thermometer. Taking a look then, week 4, we moved on to the pan-fried cutlets. That is a great suggestion for this week. That is absolutely a fantastic, acceptable protein to do for this week's assignment. We remember shallow frying, pan frying. That oil is only up to about halfway to the side of the protein. You do need to flip it over to ensure that you get that nice GBD color, golden brown, delicious. We also talked about what cutlets are, right? And they're generally a little bit of a tougher cut of meat. It could be a top round, a little bit of chuck roast, can be chicken, and we'll pound that out with a mallet to tenderize it, make it only about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch thick, and then we'll bread it. And that will go into the hot oil. Do not put cutlets into cool oil, because what happens, cool oil will force the breadcrumbs or the breading to absorb the oil on the outside of your protein, and it will become very soggy. Sogginess is not GBD. No questions about that. Two totally separate things. So make sure that you have your thermometer, make sure that you have the appropriate temperature, usually right around 350 degrees before you put that in there. Remember, when you saute, that is done on a high temperature with less fat, and then pan frying is a lower temperature, more fat, and it's oftentimes breaded. Those are the two big differences between those things. Talked a little bit during week 1 and week 2 about some of the best oils to be using, and week 3 for the best oils to be using for deep frying. This is a really good standard rule of thumb. Those of us from the old school were exposed to lard, and I love frying in lard because that is a saturated fat that just has you can cook at a very high temperature, but in today's world, they don't like that. So we'll use peanut, safflower, soybean, grapeseed, canola oil, which kind of has run its gamut in the marketplace. We also call it a variety of soybean oil. Make sure you pay attention to the type of oil that you are using. You notice down here in this pan, this oil has reached what we call smoke point, and it's about to go into flash point. A lot of us in industry, we like to saute in half butter and then half of a high temp oil. And what that does is that raises the smoke temp of the butter, but it still allows you to get that flavor. So that might be consideration if you're doing that this week. We talked about the dangers of deep frying as well. We talked about that last week. And then this past week, we did court bouillon, right? We discussed that court bouillon, you're going to put your mirepoix and your sachet or your herbs into water, bring it to a boil for about 20 minutes. And then you're going to strain it out, cool it down, and then that's what you will poach your fish in. Poaching, we also discussed, we really want that water right in between 160, 180. We don't want it boiling. We want that water to have slight movement in there because fish can be very tender. So if that water's at a rapid boil, it's going to shred it. It's going to break it down. We talked about the fact the fish needs to be brought to a proper temperature of 145 degrees at least to ensure that all the bacteria has been killed. It's good. So make sure that you do have your kitchen thermometer near for this exercise should you choose to do a poached fish for this week's exercise. Any fish, I know Crystal mentioned at the beginning of the class, she wasn't quite sure what kind of fish it was, but you've learned the actual technique. I prefer to use a fattier fish, such as salmon or halibut or a cold water fish like Chilean sea bass to poach. Those seem to me to come out a little bit better, but some people don't mind doing corvinas and groupers and mahi-mahi. Sometimes those work well for other people as well. Steamed vegetables. I think we all remember how to do that. Chef Suzanne brought up a great suggestion last week, and that was that small fan, perforated, that you purchase. We use them quite a bit in restaurants, but they fold and then they open up, and that is an insert into your small pot. It has a small thing on the bottom which prevents it from touching the bottom, but that allows the steam to come up and cook your vegetables. We also talked about the fact that a lot of people like to do, what was the term back in the 90s, melange or something, where they mix together all sorts of different vegetables. But today we just say mixed vegetables. Should you choose to do that, make sure that you're conscientious of the cooking temperatures. You know, cauliflower takes longer to cook than zucchini, and sugar snap peas don't cook the same as asparagus. So you need to be very careful about that as well. And then we had Crystal that did in Papillote last week. And we're going to go through this super quick here. Take a look at it. In Papillote is the technique of steaming the fish within parchment paper. We know that some people do aluminum foil, but it's not a good thing because the acidity eats through the aluminum foil. Down south, they like to use banana leaves, which I think is a wonderful technique, and I love that. It's layered in the parchment paper. You have a layer traditionally of a julienne vegetable, and then you'll have your seafood seasoned compound butter, which can be like a maitre d' butter or a lemon butter, and then some type of citrus over the top, herbs, and then fold it into the parchment paper. Great technique that you can have a lot of fun with over the years. We start by folding our parchment paper in half, cutting a heart-shaped diagram out of it, just like we see here in the photos. And then once you're going to use half of your heart half heart, and you're going to layer up your flavors, fold it over, and then begin the folding technique. This will be up on the class page, so you can take a longer look at this, just like we did last week. And then make sure that your edges are folded nice and neat. Not only does that ensure that the steam is going to stay in the packet, but it also makes a nice presentation for your guest. Traditionally, these are opened up table side, and the guests get to smell that butter and wine and everything else coming out of that packet. Table side is making me hungry just thinking about it. And then you can see with the cooked fish, because it's steamed in those juices. Butter sauce, we talked a little bit about that before class this evening. We're going to reduce a drier white wine, such as a Chardonnay, till it's almost dry. They call that au sec. You've got shallots, garlic if you prefer, thyme, cracked black pepper, bay leaf, whatever you choose to put in there for your choice of flavorings. And then you're going to take some room temperature butter, remove that wine reduction from the heat, and you're going to begin stirring that in a little bit at a time, right? You're going to stir in a small piece, allow that emulsification to create, and then keep adding. You might have to move it back and forth over the heat, but it's got to be a very low source of heat while you're doing that. As that sauce develops, it will become thick. It will have a nice consistent look, and you'll know that you're done when you can put a spoon in, rub your finger down the back of the spoon, and have a nice nappe presentation. Nappe being defined as staying separated. Did I miss anything?
You did not. I actually want to share my screen real quick. I want to show something. We've talked about it, and I want to show. We've talked about racks.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm not sure that everyone has them, but they are not expensive at all. So here's some actually at Walmart. There's a lot of times over in the baking section, like this one here is only $3. I actually have this one up here that's 3 tiers. They all stack together. Probably the most used things in my kitchen. We use them to lift food out when we're roasting or baking. Obviously, they can be used to cool cookies, used to cool baked products, and then used to drain. I use them to when we pan fry or deep fry to drain. They are probably, I keep one in my camper because we just use them so much. And I'd be lost without my racks in my kitchen.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the $3 guy. I'm not as spendy as you are. I'm the $3 guy.
$10 for 3, so I was okay.
I bought 3 for $9.98. No, actually the $3 ones are the ones that I've bought, and I've cut them in half. And it's kind of funny because we use it. We'll put it over our burners, and then we'll use it to roast chilies or tomatoes or whatever else. And that's why I went with the $3 ones, because they were easier to cut in half.
Yeah, I've some of those too. Yeah, I haven't split them, but I bought the smaller ones for when we roast peppers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love racks. I use them all the time.
You cannot have enough of them in the kitchen, so they are there. Let's take a look at our week 6 assignment, and I think Chef Suzanne's going to jump in here with me as well, and we're going to talk about what the requirements are for this week. We were talking briefly before the beginning of the class. This week's assignment technically is a sautéed protein with starch, vegetable, and sauce. So what that tells us, we're changing the assignment a little bit. We are looking for 4 elements on the plate, right? One will be a vegetable, one will be a starch, one will be a sauce, and then the other one will be your entree. Now that entree, if you're doing chicken parmesan or eggplant parmesan, well, it could be eggplant. So it doesn't necessarily have to be protein, preferably protein. Do not do a sweet potato entree. Do not do a zucchini entree. That will not pass. It has to be an entree. With those 4 elements, we have our protein, starch, veg, sauce, and we will also be looking very closely at presentation this week. We want to make sure that you have the 3 basic elements of color, height, and texture included in your dish. We are not looking for the cover of Gourmet Magazine. That is not what this is about. This is about developing your style. When I first began garnishing plates many, many moons ago, they were goofy. And I kept doing it, and I kept getting better and better. And it takes time to develop that individual style. Be patient with yourself. Follow color, height, texture. Make sure that all garnishes on your plate are there to complement what you are serving. Right? Do not serve chopped mint over your grilled New York strip steak. It doesn't make sense, right? You have to make sure that it is all copacetic and it all jives. Let's take a look at our rubric here. Obviously, we're going to go with our self-identification photo, our mise en place demonstrating proper station setup, especially if you are doing a breading station this week. Chef Suzanne is going to want to make sure that you have it set up with your egg wash, your flour, your breading. It's nice, it's neat, it's clean, it's orderly, and ready to go. Sanitizing bucket with test strip. Make sure that you have your proper test strip in there. And then the protein, you want to have a proper picture of your protein. Vegetables cut appropriately for chosen cooking technique. What that means, if you are deep frying your vegetable, Chef Suzanne is not going to be too satisfied if you are doing julienne carrots for deep frying, because they will disintegrate in the oil, right? If you're going to deep fry a carrot, it should be blanched and it should be a bâtonnet cut. So think this through. You're not going to steam julienne or brunoise vegetables. It just doesn't work. So make sure that it is appropriate. Protein cooking in pan, protein after turning, and proper cooked vegetables, sauce at proper consistency, preferably nappé, being able to run your finger down the back and having it stay separated. And then your final plated dish that shows all 4 elements as you would serve it to a guest in a restaurant. And of course, your narrative must be included as well. As we spoke about earlier, Impapillote is acceptable for this, which does not exactly fit into all of that rubric there. Chef Suzanne, what did I miss?
Not really anything. This basically, you've got a little bit of freedom this week. So instead of just doing the saute like it says, you would rather practice. Maybe you poach, so you'd like to try Impapillote, or maybe you feel like your deep fried fritters got the best of you, so you're gonna show them who's boss and make fritters this week as one of your sides, some zucchini fritters on the side. So a little bit of freedom. You just have to have the protein, the sauce, the vegetable, and the starch. So you've got some freedom. And if you've got questions, as always, reach out to Chef or myself. and we can make sure that you're going to hit all the right points for the assignment. But it's basically just giving you some freedom to do what we've been working on for the past five weeks, 6 weeks.
And there's always an and, isn't there? Whenever you're dealing with the chef, there's always an and. I think what Chef Suzanne mentioned earlier needs to be reiterated once again. We really would like to see something new and different. Push the boundaries of your culinary ability. When we see a mistake, what that tells us, that student is trying and that student is learning. It is okay, because we made mistakes. We expect others to make mistakes, and we grow from those mistakes. So pushing those boundaries, you might end up making a little bit of mistake, but you know what? You're going to be a little bit comfortable next time, more comfortable next time you push those boundaries as well. So something new is always good. Isn't that right, Chef Suzanne?
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the things in the actual grading rubric, one in the little clickable rubric, is it doesn't necessarily say that you have to get it right if you understand what you did wrong. So if you make fritters and they don't come out, they fall apart, and you say, well, I didn't follow the recipe, I didn't have enough flour, so it didn't hold together, and they fell apart. It's not just getting it right, it's acknowledging what you may have done that you won't do the next time. So that is almost as important as getting it right, is knowing what you did wrong.
Crystal was a prime example. And I have to give hats off to her when she was talking about her butter sauce at the beginning of the class. She knew it didn't come out exactly right. She brought it up. She talked about it. We showed her how to fix it. I guarantee you next time it's going to be a rock star when it comes out. And I remember as a young culinarian, I worked at a place, and I was working on one of the stations, and the chef wanted a different vegetable and a different starch every night of the week. And I'm like, I messed up a lot of stuff, but today I can competently do that. And I have a little bit more creativity because I've stepped out of those boundaries before of comfort. So, ladies and gents, as always, if you have any questions, need any support, you know how to get a hold of us. Numbers are on the right-hand side of the class page. We are both here at your service. We are here to help you succeed and encourage you to grow. Remember what we talked about at the beginning of the class this evening. CA 121 will not be offered next block. Should you not make it through the course, you will be looking at re-enrolling. Get a hold of us. Give us the opportunity to help you succeed. That's what we're here for. I hope everybody has a great week, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.